Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The program is about to begin. Ladies and gentlemen, if we could ask for silence in the room, and please silence your mobile devices now.
Good afternoon, everyone. We have a special guest today that we're very honored to have with us. He is a 36-year-old successful businessman who left it all behind to be of service to his country by being a senior advisor to the President of the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, Jared Kushner. How you doing?
Great. Thank you for having me. And
Thank you for being here.
thank you. It's an honor
That's
to be
good.
here. I know a lot of people in the audience here, and it's really an honor to be able to talk about this topic with so many people who I respect so much, who've given so much to this issue. So,
Great. You've been in the news in the last few days, to say the least.
yeah.
But you've been in the news about an issue that I personally want to thank you for, because you and your team were taking steps to try and get the United Nations Security Council to not go along with what ended up being an abstention by the U.S. Against a 50-year-old tradition. And to be honest with you, some people might criticize, as far as I know, there's nothing illegal there, but I think that this crowd and myself want to thank you for making that effort. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. The President has referred to the Middle East peace as the ultimate deal. Everyone here knows that. Experts give you high marks for trying, but none of them believe it's possible. Why do you think it's possible? Or do you think it's possible?
Let's start right with it then. So,
Okay, yes.
The president has a very long career of accomplishing things that a lot of people say were impossible. I think the most recent example of that is the election, where a lot of people who were the experts on the election thought that was impossible, and the president took a very unconventional approach towards running and was ultimately successful with that. When we started the process of looking at how to create the peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians, the first thing a lot of people told us was that it wasn't the right time. The conditions weren't right. After years of distrust, we were really wasting our time to do it. The approach we've taken, even Barak Ravid wrote recently that the president's injected peace back into the discussions, and that's something we're very proud of because we do think it is achievable, and we think that there is a lot of reasons why this is a time, why it should happen. When you look at the region, you have solve this issue. And so the president sees it as something that has to be solved, that he very much wants to be solved, and it's something that he's personally put a lot of time into trying to see happen.
I understand that, but to achieve that, the team has in it an entrepreneur, you, a real estate lawyer, a bankruptcy lawyer. I don't know how you've lasted 8 months in this lineup, but that's for another day. And it's impressive that it's still going. There's not a Middle East macher in this group. So, I mean, how do you operate with people who basically, you know, with all due respect, a bunch of Orthodox Jews who don't have no idea about anything? What are you guys doing?
So I'll definitely say,
seriously, I don't understand this.
So I'll definitely say it's not a conventional team, but
you can say that again.
Yeah, so that's what I said. That's what I said.
Well, say it again.
Okay. It's a perfectly qualified team in the way Chaim sees it. So
how is that?
No, I was joking.
Oh, okay.
So we have. So when we were thinking about how to put a team together, the president and I focused on who had the right qualifications, who we both trusted, and we have David Friedman, who's one of the most brilliant bankruptcy lawyers, who is a close friend
It's
of
a
mine.
bankrupt situation, so yeah. So it's appropriate to have a bankruptcy lawyer.
You could argue that you're wondering why they've never had a bankruptcy lawyer working on this before. So,
and it's a real estate issue too, so you're the real estate aspect.
Well, actually, so there's no better real estate lawyer than Jason Greenblatt, who's been working on this. And there are a lot of real estate related issues to it, but it's also a function of being able to listen to all the different sides and understand them, and the personalities work. We also have Dina Powell, who works with us, who has been very instrumental. Her family's Egyptian. She speaks Arabic, but she's been very instrumental in helping us develop a regional aspirational economic plan for what could happen post-peace, because we don't view a peace agreement just as signing a piece of paper and then hoping everything works out. We're focused on what happens after, and how do you create an environment where 10 years down the road, the people who are beneficiaries of the peace have jobs and opportunity that they didn't have before. So that's really how the teams worked. I'd say that the best thing about the team is there is a lot of trust within the team. And the fact that we're so close, there's been no leaks on the process to date, has enabled a lot of the sides that we work with to be able to work with us maybe in a more open format than they would have. So what we found originally was there was a lot of hesitancy from the people on both sides to share ideas, to really explore the ideas with us in a way that could be constructive to come to conclusions. But what we found is, as they saw that nothing would leak out and we could have honest and open dialogues, and that we were really listening to what they had to say and what their issues were and how they thought things could be resolved, we saw that the conversations really opened up a lot.
Well, I'm happy you mentioned trust, because there's no trust between the sides at all. You managed to build trust on the Israeli side. I know you're working hard on building trust on the Palestinian side. But frankly, it's all going to end up with the mediator, you. Both sides need to trust you, because if they don't, then you won't be able to, by any stretch of the imagination, get there. What is your approach in getting them to trust you? They don't trust each other, that's a fact, right? As you mentioned.
Let me take two of the different things you mentioned there that I slightly disagree with. The first thing is I think there actually is a lot.
You disagree with me?
Yes.
That's a bad idea.
Should I? If you want to stop this, we can. But only slight disagreements. So the first thing that you mentioned was that there's no trust between the Israelis and the Palestinians. I think that there's a lot of instances of great trust between Israelis and Palestinians. I think that there's not a lot of trust between the leadership. And I think that's what we've been really working on, because the leadership ultimately has to come together. But I've been very overwhelmed by all the cases I've seen of Israelis and Palestinians working together and having great relationships and saying, look, if we could only get this thing resolved politically, then we could move on to a much brighter future. With regards to trust in the mediator, I think that we've done our job, but both sides really trust the president. And I think that that's very important, because while I've been working the problem for the president, the fact that both sides trust him and know that he has the right intentions and the right creativity and the right desires to see this happen has been very important. What I will say, though, is that as this process has gone through, my team in particular, being 3 Orthodox Jews and a Coptic Egyptian, has tried very hard to do a lot of listening, not just with the Israelis, because when we have titles and positions, that doesn't come with trust. Trust is earned. It's not granted. So we've gone out of our way to do a lot of listening with the Palestinians, with the Israelis, to understand what their issues are, what their red lines are, why they're their red lines, and then to decide how we can find areas of mutual agreement and to find reasons to do things as opposed to reasons not to do things. We've done the same with the different countries that are regional stakeholders, and I think the fact that we've tried to find a solution that comes from the region as opposed to imposing something.
Yeah, I'd like to pick on that.
Sure.
Because I think that this is a very important point. The regional approach, which is basically an outside-in approach that you're taking, is what differentiates this period from previous periods. Can you expand on that? How are you planning to work with the Emiratis and Saudis and all the other Arab states in order to help at least make progress, engage in negotiation on the Israeli-Palestinian thing? What's the strategy there?
Sure. So the regional dynamics are very interesting right now. Before I talk about that, though, one other point I want to make is that we've been very focused on the deal, right? And spending, I guess now it's about 7-8 months that we've been very focused on that. You see a lot of reasons why this deal can go south very quickly, and there's a ton of distractions that come up. You know, my team deals every month with maybe 3 or 4 different issues that will come up, and everyone says this is the end of it if it doesn't work. And you know what I tell my guys? I say, guys, we're not chasing rabbits. And then they'll say, well, these aren't rabbits, these are elephants, these are big deals. They'll say, that means they're slower, we'll get to them after. But a lot of the issues that come up in the relationship on a day-to-day basis are causes of not having a final status agreement. So if you solve the bigger issue, then a lot of the little issues, not little issues because they're all very serious issues, will be mitigated over time. And so we try to keep everyone focused on solving the bigger issue. And we've done a lot of work. You know, people talk about trust building exercises. I don't see a lot of trust, as you've said, so I'm not sure, you know, you could do trust exercises for the next 100 years. I'm not sure what that will really accomplish. You got to focus on solving the big issue. The regional dynamics play a big role in what we think the opportunities are, because as the Middle East has evolved, a lot of these countries look and say that they all want the same thing. They want economic opportunity, they want peace for their people, and they look at the regional threats, and I think they see that Israel, who was traditionally their foe, is a much more natural ally to them today than perhaps they were 20 years ago. So
because of Iran.
Because of Iran, because of ISIS, because of extremism,
right.
And you know, Israel's got a very powerful army. They've got a great economy. They've got a lot of innovation in their economy, and you know, there's an old reason why this has been not put together. And so you have a lot of people who want to see it put together, but we have to overcome this issue of the Israeli-Palestinian issue in order for that to happen.
Should we see the president's trip, first trip, I should say, as a president to Saudi Arabia and then followed by Israel, as part of this plan? What was that trip about? I mean, why did you start in Saudi Arabia?
Right. So that was something we spent a lot of time thinking about, and we ultimately decided to make the president's first trip to Saudi Arabia for a few reasons. The first one was that Saudi Arabia, as the custodian of the 2 holy sites, is one of the leaders in the Islamic and Muslim world, and we thought that would be a great place to really convene a lot of the countries. So we got 54 Arab and Muslim countries together for a summit, which was the first time that had happened, and we were really able to set out what this administration's priorities were, but then also say that we're not going to solve all these problems ourselves. We have to solve them all together, and these problems are not just America's problems, they're the world's problems, and you know, we were called upon all of the leaders in the Muslim and Arab world to step up with us and to be our partners and to take action to try and solve them. The problems were unifying everyone against Iran's aggression. We spoke about...
How much progress have you made there, unifying everybody against Iran?
I think we've made significant progress there, not just in the Middle East.
How does it manifest itself in the field?
We'll find out. So, I mean, it will take some time, but...
Jared, you know, but you're not telling us.
If you look at the last years before we came into office, I think a lot of these countries felt like Iran was being emboldened and their aggression was being unchecked.
Yeah.
And I think that there was a lot of they welcomed American leadership, and they welcomed the president's vision of everyone unifying around common objectives. So the president likes to be very, very clear with the way he speaks and with what his intentions are. People accuse him of a lot of things, but not of being blunt and straightforward. And going into Saudi Arabia, convening 54 Muslim countries, and laying out the priorities of countering Iran's aggression, of fighting extremism, of defeating ISIS, and of creating peace and opportunity in the region was very important. King Salman in his speech actually said something that we thought at the time was very significant, where he said, there is no glory in death, which we thought was very significant. And then when you go to the peace in the region, from the first discussions we've had with the Saudis, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is something that they care a lot about. The king and the crown prince care a lot about the Palestinian people. They believe that the Palestinian people should have the same hope and opportunity as everyone else in the world.
This is bin Salman?
Yes.
Sir? Right.
And this has been a big priority for the king and the crown prince to try and see the Palestinian people have that. And they recognize that finding a solution to this problem is the only way that can really be achieved. So they've been very committed to doing that. And it's not just the Saudis as well. It's really all of the people we've been talking with, whether it's the Emiratis, the Jordanians, the Egyptians, the Qataris. We've seen a lot of these countries really pushing very strong to try and see if they can create a solution there.
Right. The president seems really firm on his commitment to resolve this conflict. And he also said that if you can't get it done, nobody can get it done. So I hope you can, can I tell them how we met? Because I reached out to you.
Please.
Yes, so we have a foundation and we have a guy that runs our foundation, and one day he calls me up and he says, I'm putting some documents in storage, and there's a letter from a Jared Kushner from 2010 praising you. Say, praising me? I don't know who this guy is. I never answered that letter. And he said, yeah, it was about an article which I hated in the New Yorker. Just shred me to pieces. He loved it. Go figure. But he loved it, so he wrote me a letter, a very nice letter. I never answered it, and I said, oops, here we go. So I called Jared, and he was very gracious and said, yeah, I'd be more than happy to. I know who you are. Well, he wrote me a letter. I never answered, so. But I didn't know who he was. And this is how we met. And I'm glad I did so. And we became friends, and we exchange ideas on an ongoing basis. He advises me, and I advise him. Whether he takes my advice, I have no idea, but that's a separate conversation. But going back to the president, what drives him to, what's this about? His commitment that seems to be so firm to get a deal done. Is it your influence? Is it his heart? What is it? Is it a combination of both? He seems really committed to get something done. Why does he care so much about it?
So I'll talk to the president's commitment to this issue, but to talk about your story, I recall reading that article in the New Yorker many years ago and being impressed with the way that you'd obviously accomplished a lot of things in your professional life, but then devoted yourself to a lot of causes, not just with your financial resources, but also with your time that you really wanted to make a difference in. So I had admiration for that. I wrote a letter, and I'd forgotten about it too till I got a call. Then we're in the middle, of course, but then we're in the middle of
After 10 years, I can say thank you, yeah.
But then we're in the middle of a presidential campaign, and needless to say, we were on slightly different sides. And I got a call from Heinz Bond, and I said, what the hell is going on here? And so Chaim called me, we got together, and I don't know if you remember what I said to you, because your primary concern was obviously you care a lot about the U.S.-Israel relationship for a lot of reasons, and you said to me, well, I'm very concerned. I don't know much about Trump, and I don't know what this means for Israel. And I don't know if you remember what I told you, but I remember saying that you should hope that Trump wins if you care about the U.S.-Israel relationship, because there'd be no better president who could strengthen the relationship and try to cause change in the region if Trump wins. And so I'm not going to put you on the spot at the forum and ask you if, in retrospect, you're happy with the outcome or not.
Okay, let's talk about Hillary. Let's talk about Hillary. Okay, so
Yeah, but
well, look, I mean, the rhetoric is there.
Yeah.
And, you know, the team of lawyers that have no clue about the Middle East is there. You know, the commitment, I mean, looking from the outside in, you know, it appears to be there to get something done. I mean, you fly to Saudi Arabia unannounced for a day and a half, you spend the night speaking. I don't think you're necessarily speaking so much about Yemen. So I don't know what you spoke about, but I'm assuming. So there is no question that, you know, it comes across to us looking from the outside in that there is a commitment there. And the team that is working on it, I'm sure, have their heart, starting with you, have their heart into getting a deal done and bringing peace to the Middle East, which is all of us here hope for. So, you know, I wish you luck. It's
thank you.
Yeah,
well,
I wish you luck.
Well, I will say, you know, to your question on the president's commitment.
Yeah.
You know, the way that I try to define the president's foreign policy objectives to people is that he really has two major foreign policy objectives: peace and prosperity. And the president wants us to work on all areas where he can end as much conflict as possible, create as much peace, and then he obviously wants to see a world where there's as much you know, growth in economic opportunity as possible. The difference maybe between this president in the past is he wants to fight hard to get as much of that economic growth into America. So, you know, that's really where America First. He wants to make good deals for our country. He wants to figure out how to create good opportunity to bring that back. Figuring out how to bring peace and how to strengthen the U.S.-Israel relationship, he sees as an integral part of furthering both of those objectives.
So it's part of an overall plan, if you
yes,
say.
But it's very personal to him, and he sees this as something that is very integral to America and to his personal values.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. That's encouraging. So, as I said, you know, I wish you luck. So, there is a plan. There's a speculation. There is a plan. You got to have a plan by now. I mean, 4 lawyers, come on. It's got to be a plan. Tell us what it is.
I thought with 4 lawyers, you're guaranteed not to get to a plan if you have so many lawyers working on it. No,
Jason Greenblatt here. Where is he? Right here. And then I met with David Friedman when I was in Israel. And who's the 4th one?
Dina Powell.
She's not a lawyer.
She is not a lawyer.
She's out. Okay, so.
But I will say, you know, we work with all the agencies very well. You know, we've read in people at the State Department, all of the different agencies. So we've got plenty of lawyers around who are looking to get involved if we need any more help. I think with regards to what we've done is we've solicited a lot of ideas from a lot of places. There's obviously speculation all the time about whether there is a plan, there isn't a plan, and what's in it. And then reporters will call and say, well, we hear that you've got these 4 points are in and these 2 points are out. And then I'm looking around the room, and all the people in the room I know don't talk to the media. They're all very trustworthy, and I know that none of them have spoken to this reporter. So we all kind of laugh and say, okay, we're just not going to play the guessing game. So I think that one of the reasons we've been able to come this far is that, you know, we know what's in the plan. The Palestinians know what discussions we've had with them. The Israelis know what discussions we've had with them. And
so you can tell us.
Okay, so let me start. No, so we're not going to disclose that today. But I am optimistic that there is a lot of hope for being able to bring a conclusion to this. And I'll also say that, you know, especially with the people who are here today, there's been so much work on this problem set for so many years by so many people who have been so devoted to the cause. So a lot of you here have been very generous with your time, talking with myself, my team, with your writings and with your thoughts. And that's been very helpful also to us developing the ideas that we ultimately believe have the potential to be successful. So we're working forward. You know, one thing people always ask us is they say, you know, well, you have a timeline, when's this, when's that? And we're business people, we're not politicians, and you're a businessman. And you know that when you do deals, sometimes you have deals you think will go very quickly and they take forever, and then you have deals sometimes you think will take forever and they go very quickly. So we've been very deliberate about not setting time frames, not trying to do this the way that it's been done before, so that we have more room and opportunity to hopefully be successful with it.
And the whole story with the embassy coming on Wednesday, can you tell us something about this?
I'll tell you what we're telling everyone else, which is
No,
that
don't tell me what you're telling everybody else. Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
I mean, look at this crowd here. You can put a pin in here that's so crowded. They all came for you.
it's okay. All the reporters have already called saying they have inside sources that know what the decision is. But what I'll say is that the president's going to make his decision, and with
He hasn't made his decision?
he's still looking at a lot of different facts, and that when he makes his decision, he'll be the one to want to tell you, not me. So he'll make sure he does that at the right time.
So basically, you're not going to tell us.
Not today.
Okay, Wednesday, Thursday. I'll call you on Thursday.
Perfect.
After the president says, you can repeat what he said.
Perfect. Perfect.
Deal. So I'd like to end on a personal note. For a young man, you have a pretty successful career as a businessman in the real estate business. Your wife had her own career, and then you dropped all this and put it in trust or whatever you had to do by law. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how much they pay you, but I know the American government doesn't pay a lot. So, and you decided to do this. Tell us a little bit about the changes. People don't know you, so tell us a little bit about this. Tell us about how did you adopt your life into Washington? The kids, do they like it? Ivanka, yeah. Tell us how you met Ivanka.
We could go through that as well. We actually got introduced by two business colleagues, and I got very, very lucky in that one. But
yes, you did.
Very, very lucky.
Yes, you did.
But what I would say is that for us, we did not plan our lives like we would go into politics. Ivanka's father decided to run for president, and then we slowly got more and more into the campaign. And as we saw more of the country, we saw a lot of the problems. We met a lot of the people. We saw that he was fighting for a lot of change that really needed to happen for the country. And so we helped with the campaign. And then when he said he was coming to Washington, we made the decision to leave our lives and to do this. And look, it's definitely been, we've probably been working harder than we've ever worked before. I mean, every day it's a different challenge. I think that we view it like you have a short amount of time to create as much impact as possible in the areas that you really care about. And so whether it's working on the peace process or working on the U.S.-Mexico relationship, which I know you also care about, working on the technology upgrades that we're working on throughout the government, working with Kellyanne on the opioids, and working on the improvements we're making in the VA, and improving the future of workforce, that we've been figuring out how we get Americans trained for the jobs of tomorrow and 10 years from now. There's so much great work that needs to be done, that can be done, and we feel very honored to be able to do it. And what I will say is that every day we come in, the reason why we've been working so hard is that we feel like it's just sand going through an hourglass, and before we know it, it'll be over. And so we're going to work as hard as we can to make as much impact we can on the areas that we care about, and that's really how we judge ourselves. So we try not to get distracted by the day-to-day, and we don't pay a lot of attention to the noise.
Scrutiny,
but
the press, the media in general. How do you deal with that? I mean, this is not a world you're familiar with, even though you own the newspaper, but basically, you can't open the TV or read a newspaper that there's not a story about you or about Ivanka's shoes or this one's ties or I don't know what, always going back to you, analyzing what you did, what you didn't say, what you're doing, what you're not doing.
Yeah.
Is that disturbing you?
I don't let it bother me. I mean, there are people who are good at dealing with the media. My focus is on the objectives, and we'll stay focused on the different missions. And we're here to serve the country, and we'll just keep going. And what I am confident is that when our service is done, we'll look back and we won't say, oh, there was a bad story on this, there was a bad story on that. We'll look back and we'll say, did we spend every minute we could to push as hard as we could on the issues we cared about to make as big of an impact as possible? So we feel very fortunate to be able to have the opportunity to work for this country that we think is the greatest country in the world. And so we're just going to keep going. And and look, I think that it's you can choose what you spend your time on every day. And unfortunately, if we spent our times focusing on trying to correct things or deal with the media, then we wouldn't have time to do the other things. So we do the best we can with that, but we don't let it bother us. And we recognize that it's politics. That's the sport of it, and people will either agree or disagree with what you said or didn't say. But that's not what's real. What's real at the end of the day is what you accomplish, the differences you make, the lives you impact. And that's what we stay very focused on. And look, D.C. is a different place. We never thought we'd move out of New York, but the kids are loving it here. The schools are great. And my wife and I feel like we've made a difference so far, and there's a lot more impact that we have the ability to make. So
that's great.
Thank you.
Jared, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good. Thank you.
À la